Hey there, this is Pastor Joel Rissinger, and I want to talk to you a little bit about my new book, The Crucified Church, Leading Your Church Through Death and Rebirth. Here, let me get you a close-up here. Lighting's not the greatest, but there you go. Yeah, it's published by published by Zulon Press, and you can get to their website at www.xulon.com. Let me tell you about the book, why I wrote it, and what I believe and prayed that God would use me to communicate. The church in America is dying. I don't think anybody really doubts that. Oh, people argue it sometimes, and that would be based more on emotion than fact. People like George Barna, Ed Stetzer, men much smarter than I, have proven again and again and again that the statistics show that no matter how you measure it, whether we measure it in attendance or whether we measure it in life transformation by comparing growth and change in marriage or parenting or instances of drug or alcohol abuse or porn addiction or whatever, when we compare those things to the world, we see that the church is not getting stronger, she's getting weaker. Certainly the pews are becoming more empty. Certainly we see other religious groups, other faiths, be it Islam or Hinduism or whatever, becoming stronger in America and growing at rates much more rapid than Christianity. And even where there has been growth in certain pockets of the country, it's not even close to keeping up with population growth. Many experts suggest that if trends continue as they are, our country, like much of Western Europe, will become primarily Muslim nation just based on population growth alone over the next several decades. So, what do we do with that? Do we just sit and cry about it? We say, oh, that's too bad. We wish it weren't the case. Do we go to workshops and seminars and try to prop up the church or somehow, inflate her in some way through workshops or programs or some kind of interesting strategy that we haven't yet devised or discovered? Or do we let the church die and be reborn? Well, my book suggests the latter, that the church in America is dying, and she should. Die to self so that she can live for God. The theme verse behind this work is Galatians 2:20, where Paul says, I am crucified with Christ, and nonetheless I live. He makes it very clear that it's not he that lives, Paul doesn't live, but Christ lives in Paul. I think many of the programs and strategies and ideas that are being promoted in Christianity today come down to simply having the church maintain her current traditions, maintain her current approach, maintain her current inward focus, and just add some stuff on top to make it more attractive to the outside world and therefore allow it to grow. And my own experience in ministry for the last nearly 20 years suggests that just doesn't work. And perhaps you found the same thing to be true. The idea behind the crucified church is that unless we pick up our cross daily, unless we die to self, unless we're willing to be selfless and have agape, outgoing concern and love for people, we're not going to make it. And that, in fact, just as individuals need to do that to be saved, that is to die to self, to live for Christ, to be buried and reborn, so to speak, symbolically, so do churches. Churches need to do the same thing. As groups of believers, we need to go through the same process. Let me just go through the table of contents quickly, and I'll close. The church in America is dying, and she should, is chapter 1. We've kind of touched on that. Chapter 2 is the facade of renewal. That just adding a program or some kind of nifty seminar to your church's existing structure and doctrine and life is probably not going to do it. Many of us want that because we don't want the pain of having to literally die to self in every area. But wouldn't we tell a new Christian that if they hold on to some portion or segment of their life and don't surrender it to Christ, they won't be blessed and they probably won't even be saved? We tell them that. Well, why not churches? What about churches? Are we really able to hold on to anything and say, this is off limits, Jesus, you can't change it? And what happens if we do that? I think what happens is what we see all around us today, not only in America, but most of the Western world, that the church is dying. So we talk about the facade of renewal, just some kind of program or idea, some sort of strategy on top of the existing structure, that it just won't work, that we truly need a death and rebirth. Chapter 3 gives a biblical foundation for this idea of groups, churches, local congregations dying to self to live for Christ. Chapter 4 talks about crucifying the church doctrinally, that there are many beliefs and teachings of the modern church that need to be put to death and reborn, starting with, most importantly, the gospel itself, that our view of the gospel has often been watered down or changed in some way. It's been altered, partly because of our own pride. Some of us emphasize one part of the gospel over another so that we can leverage ourselves over those people over there who teach or focus on something else. But the gospel is much more rich, complete, full than what I commonly call 4 points in a prayer, which is what most of the evangelicals would think of as the gospel. And that's a biblical truth that we cannot sacrifice if we want to get healthy. We talk about that, as well as other doctrines too. Chapter 5 deals with structural change, crucifying your church structurally, that there needs to be a biblical structure in order to be able to make change and go forward. Chapter 6 talks about crucifying your church with vision. What is the vision for the church? Is it something that 30 people with a flip chart in a room somewhere come up with? Or is it something Jesus already gave us over 2,000 years ago? And if it's true that he's given it to us, then how do we let that vision flow and become operational in the body, locally and collectively? Chapter 7 deals with crucifying our church through missions, a biblical view of missions. Is missions sending people to build a hospital in Peru? Some would say yes. I would say no. Why? Biblically, I would say no. I would say, hey, building a hospital is a good thing, but a church should do that, not just funding that comes from multiple churches who then wash their hands of the whole process and let someone else take care of the dirty work. We'll talk about what missions is biblically. And I would challenge you to read that chapter, even though you may think, well, that's sort of a separate topic. I don't think so. For the church to be all that she should be, she must embrace the vision Jesus gave us and roll it out just as Christ and the apostles did in the first century. Part of our problem is we've refused to do that or gotten distracted maybe from doing that. And the church has become irrelevant in most places around the world. I mean, it's everything that's needed, whether it's food for the hungry or clothing or whatever it might be, is handled through a government agency or a parachurch ministry or a third-party secular group of some kind. And that should never be. That's not what Jesus intended. Chapter 8, crucify your church through a new name. We talk about naming the church when she's been reborn. And the last few chapters deal with sort of process a little bit. Chapter 9 talks about what do you do first, where do you start. Chapter 10 deals with objections that will come up, no doubt, maybe that you'll have yourself in reading through the book. Chapter 11 deals with hospice cares for churches that don't, go through the rebirth process, just can't. And chapter 12 deals with the celebration that comes from truly, as a group, being born again, born from anew, born from above. There's some recommended reading. There's some great appendices, on what is an elder, what is a deacon, a sample constitution for the church. We hope this will be a book that helps transform churches worldwide. We're already seeing some great response in Australia and certain parts of the U.S. as well. So it's our prayer God would use this to be a blessing. If you're interested in the book, or if you have questions about the book, if you're interested in workshops or seminars that go along with the book, please contact us. Let me give you a couple ways to do that. You can email us at office@millpondchurch.org. That's office @millpondchurch.org. You can call us as well at 860-436-9216. I'll give you that one more time, 860-436-9216. You can order the book easily by going to our website, go to the bottom of the page, and just click on the little Crucified Church icon. It'll take you right to the Zulon Press bookstore. You're able to order it there and have it shipped anywhere in the world. Our web address again is www.millpondchurch.org, millpondchurch.org. We'd be thrilled to have your business. Be thrilled to hear your questions and comments and to help in any way we can. God bless you. Thank you for your interest in the book. Spread the word, will you? Bye-bye for now.